What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Nick 4K video. Today we're checking out a video from Eisenhart Productions, and the video is 2017's Power Rangers, the franchise that never was. Now, for those of you who may not know, I was actually a very big Power Ranger fan when I was a kid. I used to watch the Mighty Morphin ones. I loved Jason. Tommy was cool too, but I was always more of a Red Ranger Jason guy. It's the way it is. So as I got older, I kind of forgot about the franchise. And then when this got announced around like 2015, I heard they were making it. I was getting actually pretty excited about it. I was like, maybe they could really take that older material and do something cool with it, because I know like the TV show for Power Rangers really just got off the walls and they went to like way too many different Power Ranger teams. But the original 5, or I should say the original 6, they were the best. They were just simply the best, and I love them. And I was waiting to see what they were going to do with the movie. The movie came out, and me personally, I thought it was fine, but it definitely left room for a better sequel. And I guess the movie didn't do good enough, so they never did it. And of course, for those of you who might be in the Power Ranger sphere, the biggest villain to this entire franchise isn't any of the villains in the shows or the movies. The biggest villain is Saban himself, the actual owner of the rights of this movie. So when this movie didn't do the numbers he wanted, he cut off the franchise, and that was it. He did not see the gold at the end of the rainbow with it. I think there was a better sequel with Tommy being introduced, and they just forgot about it. But I'm sure Eisenhart will cover all that stuff in this video. But if you want to see more videos from me, make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more. And of course, I'll have a link to the playlist somewhere around my head here. So go ahead and click that. You can check out more of my videos. With that said, guys, let's jump in.
2017's Power Rangers was a film that had a lot of hype leading up to its release, but once it came out, it was quickly forgotten by a majority of moviegoers. Although it may have its fans and staunch supporters, it certainly didn't kickstart the franchise that the filmmakers and studios hoped it would, and we never got to see the sequel that was teased at the end of the film. So today, I want to take a look at the history of this film, discover why it never got a follow-up, and offer some of my personal thoughts on the movie. In May of 2014, the owners behind the Power Rangers property, Saban Capital Group, partnered with Lionsgate Films to announce a live-action movie based on the iconic franchise. From the start, these companies' mission was to launch a film series with this movie. Soon after this announcement, X-Men: The First Class writers Ashley Miller and Zach Stentz were hired to write the script. However, this script was shot down by the studios. Max Landis then proposed a Power Rangers script, but it too was shot down, as the studios were looking for something with a grittier tone. Officially, 2017's Power Rangers has 8 different credited writers. These consisted of 3 credits for the original characters and series the movie is based on, John Gatton's being credited for the screenplay, and 4 other writers receiving a story by credit. Among those writers, we have the iconic duo of Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless, who are the masterminds behind Morbius and Madam Web. In April of 2015, Dean Israelite was hired to direct the picture, who was just coming off his directorial debut with Project Almanac. Towards the end of 2015, the cast was beginning to assemble. The film has a mix of veteran actors and up-and-comers, such as Dacre Montgomery, R.J. Kyler, Naomi Scott, and Ludi Lin. Elizabeth Banks was brought on to play the villain, Rita Repulsa. Bill Hader was attached to voice Alpha 5, and Bryan Cranston was cast to play Zordon. Bryan Cranston was actually no stranger to the franchise, as he previously played the characters of Snizzard and Twin Man in the original series. Principal photography kicked off in Vancouver, Canada in late February of 2016 and wrapped a couple months later in May. However, some reshoots took place in October of 2016. By the end of production, the budget was calculated to be around $100 million, not including marketing and distribution. To help promote the film, Saban and Lionsgate went all out with the additional media and product tie-ins. Power Rangers had a product tie-in with Build-A-Bear Workshop and Krispy Kreme, which also has some heavy product placement in the film. As for additional media, we got a graphic novel titled Power Rangers Aftershock, a PvP mobile game titled Power Rangers Legacy Wars, and of course, tons and tons of toys and merchandise, which are a staple of the franchise. They even teamed up with Dude Perfect to market this movie. I mean, they really wanted a franchise out of this thing. Power Rangers had a pretty solid debut on March 24th, grossing $40 million in its opening weekend. However, it was still second in the box office, right behind Disney's live-action Beauty and the Beast. After the hype died down the following weekend, it had a drop of 64% and would only go down from there. In its entire US run, the film made $85 million, and overseas it made $56 million, for a total worldwide gross of $142 million. This may look good when you compare it to the initial $100 million budget. However, when you factor in that movies need to double to triple their budget in order to break even, it tells a different story. TheNumbers.com estimated the film may have lost around $74 million. However, this estimate may not be entirely accurate, since the film reportedly had record-breaking merchandise sales.
Yeah, that's where, exactly. That's what it's about. It's about the merchandise, truthfully. Like I said, I would not be surprised with the merchandising with this movie. It also probably made like double the box office, right? So this movie definitely made its money back, but it didn't make enough money for Saban to want to continue it. Another thing is, why did this movie cost $100 million? I think that's a big issue with just Hollywood in general right now, is the ballooning budgets of movies. Like, where is all that extra money going to? You could say it went to the CGI or the cast or the directors, the writers. $100 million for what we got doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm not a professional in Hollywood, but this movie should have cost maybe $70 million, if that. Probably $50 to $70 million. There was no reason this thing should have cost $100 million. They just didn't get the right people in charge, and it is what it is. And like I said, even if this movie did cost that much, the amount of money it made at the box office plus the merchandise still wouldn't have been enough for Saban to push it over. You know, Saban, based off of his shows, I once heard this, I don't know if it's still true, but back in the day, Saban was making $1 billion a year off of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And we're talking like, that's back in the 90s. Like, bro was making bank off of that. So what Saban really wanted was this thing to hit $1 billion like the MCU movies were hitting. You know, that's what he wanted, and it didn't do that, and so he just cut it off. So that's your explanation right there. No need to even talk about it anymore. That's the reason. It's disappointing because, like I said, I do think that a sequel to this movie with Tommy in it would have been better. Like, this felt like a setup to an actual movie they wanted to tell, or an actual story they wanted to tell, and we'll never see it. So it is disappointing.
For the reviews, it was a bit mixed. The critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is rotten at 51%, but the audience score is fresh at 65%. Furthermore, IMDb has it at 5.9 out of 10, and Letterboxd has it at a 2.5 out of 10. So the reviews and box office were both pretty mediocre. Not the best, but also not a total disaster. But was it bad enough to cancel the sequels? During a conference call to analysts in 2016, Lionsgate CEO John Feltheimer stated that he could see them doing 5 or 6 or 7 Power Rangers movies. This seemed to be the consensus across these studios, as the founder of Saban Entertainment corroborated that they had a 6-movie story arc already planned. But they seemed to put the horse before the carriage, as these plans were made before the first film even came out. And once it did hit theaters, these plans quickly changed. Following the disappointing box office, many people predicted that the second film would be dropped. But as stated earlier, the merchandise sales might have given the sequels some hope. In an interview with Screen Rant posted on June 26 of 2017, director Dean Israelite revealed that he would like to include the fan-favorite villain, Lord Zed, in the sequel. But he never confirmed whether this sequel was greenlit or not, and it was dependent on how the home video sales would do. As for those sales, it did show a glimmer of hope, as it held the #1 spot in home media sales and rentals in the first week. But evidently, it wasn't enough, as in August of 2017, Saban abandoned its trademark for the film's logo and sent out this statement: Power Rangers continues to own and renew hundreds of trademark registrations worldwide, including for the 2017 movie logo. The trademark registration process is very nuanced, and the status of the single application has no bearing on our ownership or the future plans for Power Rangers, as the story inaccurately reported. The franchise remains as strong and enthusiastic about its future as ever. It's funny that they added that last sentence, because just a couple months later, in the beginning of 2018, Saban Brands sold Power Rangers and their other entertainment assets to Hasbro for $500 million. So 1 year after Power Rangers flopped in theaters, the rights were now in the hands of Hasbro, and in August of 2018, Hasbro announced they were working on a sequel to the 2017 film. We got more news in 2019 when there were rumors that Hasbro was working with Paramount Pictures on the sequel. However, Hasbro changed their mind, because later in the year, these sequel talks turned into reboot talks instead.
Yeah.
The reboot would have Jonathan Entwistle at the helm, with a script written by Patrick Burley. The story was said to involve a time travel element.
At this point, it's probably for the best they just do a reboot. Honestly, I think we're going to give like another 3 more years, and then I think they're going to do another reboot and try to reboot the theatrical franchise like that. It is disappointing because there were some elements about this movie that were really cool. One thing I'm not a big fan of is the suits, though. I always thought the suits looked a little too weird. I know they wanted to make the suits look more alien than like the original show, and you couldn't like just do the spandex with the bulky helmets from the original show. I get that, but I do think there was like a happy medium where they could have took that idea and made it look a little more alien, but not over the top. I do think they went a little over the top with the alien suits in this. They're not terrible, but they're not good either, and there's definitely this level where they could have potentially backed up a little bit, but it is what it is. I definitely think, like I said, this movie felt like it was a setup for a movie they wanted to tell, and that was going to be when the Green Ranger showed up. Like, when people talk about the most epic moments in the Power Rangers franchise, in the top 5 for everybody is Jason versus Tommy. That final fight they have on the mountain. Like, that's so cool. In my brain, as a kid, I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I still think it's really cool. I mean, yeah, it's not as cool as some other fights we've seen since then, but there was definitely something there. And they could have did something really cool if they would have got the right person cast for Tommy and the right story, the right writer to kind of come in and make and craft the best story they could. But it didn't make enough money, and not enough money. Saban didn't want it, and it is what it is. But now Hasbro's best choice at this point, if they ever want to try to do another Power Rangers movie, is to wait a couple more years and reboot, and maybe like stick to your guns. Like, even if the first movie doesn't make a lot of money, go for the second one. Put it all in the second one and get the second one really good, and maybe that can kind of get the franchise rolling.
And Back to the Future fashion, they have to find a way to get back to their present. However, this version was dropped as well, and in 2020, Brian Edward Hill was brought in to write a new script. But these plans were also scrapped, and the last news we have on a new Power Rangers project were from June of this year, when Hasbro announced that they were looking to move forward with the project alongside a different creative partner. So as of this video, a new Power Rangers movie is in limbo, and there's no telling where the franchise might go. However, after the success of Barbie, I feel like Hasbro has the confidence to do whatever they want with this property. So I have hope that we will hear more news soon. In my opinion, 2017's Power Rangers is a film that is just slightly below average. It has some redeeming qualities, and there's sections of this movie that are really entertaining, but it just has too many poor qualities holding it down that I can't in sound body and mind call it a good film. Oddly enough, this movie reminded me a lot of 2013's The Lone Ranger, because in that film, John Reed doesn't truly become the Lone Ranger until the last 30 minutes of the movie, and that's when the movie starts to get good. It's the exact same case with Power Rangers. They don't morph into the Power Rangers until the last 30 minutes of the movie, and that's when the movie starts to get good. I'm not trying to sound like a guy whose brain has been melted by social media and Marvel movies, where I can only pay attention to a movie unless there's big explosions and fight scenes, but come on. For a movie called Power Rangers, I wanted to see some goddamn Power Rangers. Yeah, it was important to set up the characters and their arcs, but I think they should have started morphing way sooner. It's glaringly obvious that they were saving the budget for the last 30 minutes. I felt like they were trying too hard to be like the MCU, and this is very evident through the costumes. I did not like these suits at all, and the Red Ranger in particular looks like an Iron Man wannabe.
Yeah, they're a little over top.
That's just my opinion. One of the biggest flaws for me was the inconsistent tone. This movie couldn't decide if it wanted to be a serious, gritty blockbuster or lean into its campy roots and be an over-the-top action flick. While walking that fine line, the film doesn't fully commit to either one, which leaves it feeling not fully realized. When I was a kid, I was a casual Power Rangers fan. You know, I had a few toys, I watched a bit of the series, and I enjoyed that one movie from 1995. That being said, I'm not claiming to be a hardcore fan that can have the authority to speak on what this franchise is supposed to be like. However, the one thing I do remember about the property is that it was always pretty campy. It had over-the-top action, cheesy dialogue, ridiculous costumes, and zany villains. Working within this area is when the property is at its best, in my opinion. I think the 2017 film should have fully committed to that campy style that the series is known for. I mean, let's be honest. Power Rangers is a silly concept, and to try and portray it in a realistic or serious manner just doesn't work. For example,
That's fair.
My favorite part was when they were rushing off to battle and we got the classic theme song to accompany it. That was awesome. But unfortunately, they didn't fully commit and they only played it for like 15 seconds. By not committing to this style, it left the film looking like just another run-of-the-mill forgettable blockbuster. You could put on any Transformers movie or one of those live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and most people couldn't tell the difference. There were moments when you could see this wacky side come through, particularly when Elizabeth Banks was on screen, and she really understood what this film should have been. And that leads into what I liked about this movie. Elizabeth Banks was really fun, and the final battle at the end was pretty entertaining. I thought a lot of the character work in the first 2 acts was solid, even though it was pretty cliche, and it was great to see this group bond over the film. But even though this film is entertaining at parts and some people enjoyed it, it certainly wasn't strong enough to launch a franchise. You need to have a solid foundation before you can start to build a house.
Yes, I agree with everything he said. But like I said, the foundation was a little rocky, but it wasn't that terrible either. You know, it's one of those things where I think the sequel would have been better. I keep saying that, but it's true. I genuinely think that the sequel would have just been better if they would have gave it the respect it needed to get it out there. But it is what it is, you know?
2017's Power Rangers is yet another example on why you need to prioritize creating one good film over trying to create a whole franchise. In an effort to copy the success of the MCU, the filmmakers behind Power Rangers ended up with a box office bomb and a mediocre film. And sadly, no franchise to show for it. But what are your thoughts on 2017's Power Rangers? Did you like it, hate it, or just think it was okay? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Tom from Eisenhart Productions, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.
All right, thank you, Eisenhart Productions. That was a great video. Definitely go check out their channel. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So I pretty much said my thoughts about this movie. What do you guys think? Did you want to see a sequel, or do you think they should probably wait a couple years for a reboot? I know it's been like, this came out in 2017, so all the actors are kind of already out of the age of teenage years, but they could do a sequel. But let's say you were back in that time. Did you actually want a sequel? What do you think was going to happen? We knew it was going to introduce Tommy at some point. That was where the sequel was going, the Green Ranger. But yeah, I think it definitely, like I said, it wasn't a perfect movie, but it was one of those things where it was fun for what it was, but there was something more. There was more gold in the sequel, and they didn't do it. So I guess we got what we got. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more from me, make sure to click the links up here in front of my face here. That'll take you to my Reacts playlist where I have a ton of videos already, so go check that out. But thanks again for watching, guys. I'll catch you next one. Peace.